Thanks for coming to my talk. It's basically a talk on an overview of monetization models that games use. Most of my experiences has been in free-to-play games, but we can talk about that as we go. So first off, who am I? My name is Johnny. I have a MBA and a bachelor's in marketing. So in terms of game development, I don't do any coding. I don't do any drawing. I do business side decisions for games. I've been a QA tester. I've been a community manager. I've also been a product manager, and I am now currently the director of monetization and insights at Glow Up Games. So before we start, I want you to keep two things in mind as we go along. First, I want you to think about yourself as a consumer. What kind of games do you buy? Do you just buy the single set games, or do you buy subscription games, or are you free-to-play game player? And just kind of keep in the back of your mind, how much money have you spent on games? And then I want you to think of yourself as a developer. What kind of game do you want to make? How much salary, basically, how much money do you want to make? Or if you want to lead a team in the future, how much money do you think your team should make? Because these are going to be, in essence, like the balance that you need to think about while we go through this. So money. Talk about money, a lot of business decisions is going to be based around this, because to have a career as a game developer, we have to be able to sell our games to be able to pay our bills and to be able to survive off of it, right? So what is the difference between revenue and profit? You'll hear a lot of people talk about, well, what's the revenue and then what's the profit? Those are two different things. The difference is cost. So the basic formula is profit equals to revenue minus cost. Revenue is just, in general, what you're taking in from when you sell your games. And then cost is a bunch of other stuff. And then profit is how much after how much you've actually made. So in terms of costs, there's a couple of different types of costs you have to take into consideration when you're making video games. Fixed costs, so things like rent, salary. This could be go for, like, I mean, in the pandemic, most people don't have like an office space rent anymore, but if you are running a studio or something, you have to pay rent for your office, or in this case, most people are paying either a rent or mortgage for the living space. And then a salary cost is how much you have to pay people. Variable costs, so costs that can vary based off of different things. So for example, power, the more electricity you use, the more it's going to cost you. Or swag, the more buttons and t-shirts and things you buy, the more expensive it's going to be to get to produce them. But it doesn't always have to be one or the other. You can have them combined, so a fixed and a variable cost at the same time. So for example, a licensing deal. A licensing deal may require you to pay X amount up front and then a certain amount for every single sale you make afterwards. Scaling costs are also very common. For example, everyone's favorite platform, Steam. Steam likes to take, 30% revenue at the start and drops down to 25% if you make X amount or more, and it goes even lower. Apple and Google Play also just started doing this. It's like the first million is only 15%, but they scale up. They do a different version. There's some other costs that you have to consider as well. These are called hidden costs, so costs that you can't really plan for. For example, refunds. If you sell a game on App Store, you do a microtransaction on the App Store or Google Play, and someone pays $1 and says, I want a refund, you're on the hook for the full $1. Apple takes their cut, but then since they wanted a refund, you're on the hook for that whole $1. So even though you may have made 70 cents off of that, you still got to pay out $1. And you don't know when people are going to do a refund. So you can kind of guess, but that's not something that you normally would be expecting. And a sunk cost. This is the hardest thing to avoid in game development. A sunk cost is a cost that cannot be recovered. So for example, if you're working on a certain system or you're doing something and then it falls apart and you can't use it for some reason. So say, for example, you're trying to do something and then it just breaks and it just doesn't work at all, or some legal lease thing happens and then that's gone. Like, you're just not allowed to use that. Well, that cost is gone and it's sunk. So you can't recover it. So now we've talked about the cost part of things. Let's talk about revenue in terms of that, how to actually generate the money to make so that you can continue to make games. There's three parts to revenue. One is price, the other one's quantity, and this one, the last one's a little bit more, how do you say, like, it's like more abstract. It's called elasticity. Elasticity is how springy something is. So if you put something on sale, how many more people are going to buy it? So in other words, if you make something cheaper, do you get a lot more quantity for that, or do you get very little quantity for that? So to talk about elasticity, I want to bring up the two extreme ends. There's perfectly inelastic and perfectly elastic. When something is perfectly inelastic, it means it doesn't matter what price you pay, it will always sell a certain amount. So on a price and quantity graph over here, you see the price is on the y-axis and the quantity is on the x-axis. I can charge whatever price I want for this, and that person is going to buy however much it is. Prime example would be insulin. Insulin is a perfectly inelastic good because it doesn't matter what price you charge, the person who needs it is going to need it. And then a perfectly elastic good is it doesn't really matter what price you charge, it's just like a free for all. So free to play games are basically perfectly elastic. It's free to install, free to uninstall. People are going to switch in and out really quickly on that. But in most cases, the elasticity curve looks more like this, right? So the higher the price you get, the lower the quantity that you're going to sell, and then the lower the price you go, the more quantity you're going to sell. Question now is, do you always charge a high price, and is that a bad thing? So do you want to charge like $80, $100 moving forward, or is charging low price always good? Are more people going to buy it, right? Remember, revenue is a two-part equation. It's price and quantity. So in the combination of both, what you're actually asking for is what's the best price to charge? Sorry, just going to take a glass of drink of water. And now profit. Revenue minus cost is your profit. In other words, how much, as a consumer, how much am I willing to pay for it? That's the revenue side of your equation here, right? How much people are going to pay for it. And then from your developer side, how much did it cost for me to make? And if there's anything you take away from my talk, I want you to remember this. The key point is the break-even point. The point at which your revenue equals your costs, and after that, you should be making money, right? Before you develop any game or you start to go on it or you want to start selling it, it's really important to know what your break-even point is. Because if you can never reach your break-even point, you're never going to turn a profit, and your project is probably not going to be viable moving forward. Otherwise, unless you have like money to bleed out. So for example, I have $200,000 of salary costs for a team of 4 people. There's everything else. Ignore everything else. The only cost I have is I have to pay $200,000 for 4 people. And I say, okay, my game is worth $50. How many do I need to sell, right? Do I think I can sell 4,000 units or more at this cost or at this price? If I can, then I should go for it. If I can't, then I need to either think about somehow increasing my revenue by selling more units or increasing the price, or I should reduce my salary somehow. Maybe I try to do this with 3 people, or try to ask 4 people to work for less, which is 50K is already not that much. All right. And now to the key point of the talk. We've gone through the general concepts of revenue, cost, and profit. And I want to talk about the monetization models. There's 3 big ones that I'm sure everyone's pretty familiar with. Single purchase, sometimes like as a DLC as a single purchase, a single standalone game, like anything that you buy once and you're golden, right? You've got the whole experience. Subscription-based games, World of Warcraft, prime example, Final Fantasy, also a prime example kind of deal. And then multi-purchase, so microtransactions, timers, lockboxes, etc., all fall into this category, right? So a single purchase game, buy once and done, everything that people do. So even let's say like World of Warcraft decides to do cosmetic pets. That's a single purchase item, right? Free-to-play games that I worked on, like Lord of the Rings Online, Dungeons and Dragons Online, content packs, expansion packs, those are all single purchase games. You can do a limited release or a sales strategy. So very often you'll see like games will be like, oh, well, this is on sale, right? For like 20% off, 30% off. Steam does this a lot with their like Steam summer sales and everything. Everyone will do like Steam summer sale or holiday sale, and it'll be like a really big discount for a short amount of time. And that concentrates people into certain windows to get a sudden burst of your revenue stream. Subscription-based games, they are largely inelastic due to their binary nature. And what I mean by this is a subscription is a subscription is a subscription. You either buy it or you don't. So if you think about all the subscription services that you have, so for example, like Netflix, HBO Max, or Hulu, or any of the TV ones that you watch, or the video games that you pay that require a subscription, either they don't really do very many like sales on it. They have a mini like adjustment or like a mini curve on there by saying the more you buy, the more you save kind of deal. So if you buy like the 12-month one, you're actually only paying like $13 a month instead of $15 a month. But it's still not that much of a difference in terms of its nature. You're either getting the services or you're not getting the services. Free-to-play games will utilize this in their VIP services, and they'll gate certain features behind things. I think it was Elder Scrolls Online, where if you do a subscription service, you can get like a crafting bag or something, but you can only access a crafting bag if you're a subscriber. Multi-purchase, this is where a lot of games are right now. A lot of the current gen free-to-play games, a lot of people are moving towards this model. So most notably, lockboxes, gacha games, timers, boosts, all those things. Modern design, I've been playing Puzzle and Dragons. I don't know if you guys know this game. It's about like 9-10 years old. It's one of the oldest gacha games. Originally, when that game first started, did not have anything called a pity timer or any kind of like exchange things or limited events. So most design now, they will have some sort of pity timer built in where they eventually give you the thing that you want. This is for lockboxes and gacha. So even in like Hearthstone and all the other crafting collectible card games, you can dust something and eventually get enough dust to craft that thing that you wanted. They can also utilize limited release and sales tactics. So every single time there's like a banner event, for example, like Fire Emblem Heroes will be like special banner event. That also concentrates your revenue stream for people to start buying during these events because it's special. So pricing less is the example, since we've covered all the models and the general concepts of it. If you're on the gray spot on this curve, right? If you have a high price model, and fewer people will buy it, right? Say, for example, if you want to sell like something for $80 and you know that 10 people will buy it and you're on the gray point tells you they're going to make $800. So the question then becomes, when I do a sale, do I move down to the green point? Right? How much do I make off of that? And how soon do I move down that curve? So this is the concept of when people put things on sale or when they start bursting sales out. And when you go out initially with your first point of displaying your price, a lot of companies and a lot of people will often opt to go as high as possible to where they think they can get the most of, because you can always go lower on this curve. You can't go any higher. I can't say, hey, let's go out with this like, $60 thing and then later on say we're going to raise it up higher. That's actually a very difficult thing to do. People tend to not accept that as a concept because it's like, why am I paying the same thing but you're charging me more expensive, but it's the same thing. Example right now is some places will start off with like, oh, this is a launch sale, and they started off on sale, then they move it back up. And this is to get all the people who were probably closer to like being on the fences. I'm not sure if it's worth that much. Oh, well, it's on sale and it's launched and I really want to play this game. So that's when they'll jump on the boat. So when we look at a revenue stream, when I talk about revenue stream, it means the amount of things that you sell over the amount of time that you sell it for. So my awesome paint skills, right? The first curve over here, you're going to see, this is your, let's just say beta test into launch phase, and then all your people start trickling out and they come back in. Maybe you have like a special sale or you release a new content pack and it goes down, then you run an event. All these various things can cause these little bumps in your revenue stream, right? So you always want to try to combine, or rephrase, game companies will try to layer various monetization models to either increase this baseline sale over here, right? If you have single sell items, if you have certain events, or if you have like special subscription bonuses or something like that, right? Those can drive these little spikes, or they can increase these little baselines. So if you release a new mountain, wow, eventually all the people who are going to want to buy it, they're going to buy it. And then eventually everyone is going to buy it along the way here and there. So I just touched on this a little bit earlier, is which model to use. It's going to depend on your monetization needs and how you can meet them. If you think you can hit the monetization you need with just a subscription model, and that's what you want to do, by all means, go for it. I don't think anyone should be forced into utilizing a model that they don't want to utilize because it doesn't align with their goals. Different models target different types of consumers. You need to research what kind of game you're making and who your players are and what they are willing to pay for. So if they only want to buy single cell games, you can't turn it into like a gacha game, because then they're just going to bounce out, right? They're going to target different types of people. And remember, you're not going to be limited to just one. Like I said, World of Warcraft uses all three. What else? Every single game that has a battle pass is essentially using more than one. They'll do a free to play, and then the battle pass is a single cell kind of deal. It's like battle pass is interesting because it's kind of like a mix of a single cell, but it's also kind of a subscription because it twists the screws on you. Like, oh, if I'm not playing, I'm missing out on my bonuses, right? So you can always layer on all your different models. So maybe like you want to do like a level boost in your game or something. That also works. All right. And now I want to talk about what is going to happen next. In doing financial modeling and a lot of other types of modeling, the goal is always to maximize revenue and minimize your costs, right? That gets you the most profit. So when does a business change its business model, right? We saw this happen with games as we went from single cell games, and then people are like, well, we can change the subscription model because a single cell game is essentially buying the entire thing once and then the player consumes it and then they're done. But with subscription models, you can essentially keep selling the same thing over and over and over again, right? So in MMO world, World of Warcraft, you're paying $15 a month. If you didn't consume all the content the first month, you're still consuming it the second month and the third month and so on and so forth. Even if you make an alt, they didn't have to make anything new to sell to you. They're still getting revenue while their cost was a $0 increase, right? And then we moved over to the free-to-play gacha models, things like that, where people are just constantly able to pay more than just a subscription cost for the same content. I don't know if that makes any sense, right? So businesses will change their business model when they can make more money than the previous one. Not going to sugarcoat it, it's just capitalism. So back to the revenue stream picture. Revenue is price and quantity, and that is over time. We've messed with pricing before by doing sales and stuff. We can't mess with time, although we wish we could. So only thing left to mess with is quantity. What I mean by this is, right. So the recoup of lost revenue. I just talked about gacha games, and what gacha games, that's where like most of the current popular pricing model is right now. Gacha mechanics are really good at increasing the ceiling of a user's willingness to pay. So when most people start buying into gacha games and card packs and lockboxes, they are willing to spend a certain amount of money up to the point where they get the thing they want. oftentimes the person is not aware that they are doing this. They're just like, oh, I'll just throw another $20 on it. Oh, I'll just throw another $20 on it. They will keep going until they get to a point where they realize, oh, I've already spent too much on this. I should stop. Or they spent to the point where they finally get it. And then when they get it, they've just forgotten that they spent a lot of money to get it. But if we change the quantity, we can forcibly increase the floor. What I mean by this is a lot of the gotcha mechanics, when they do limited time banners, they're on a timer, right? So a user may not be willing to spend until the very end. And even if they do spend at the very end, if they were willing to spend like $200, say, to get the thing they wanted, and they got it $10 in, right? That's $190 that they didn't spend on the game. And from a business point of view, that's what I would consider a loss. I could have sold something for $200, but I sold it for 10. So if we change the quantity of it, in other words, if I say that not only is this banner limited in time, it is also limited in quantity. So between, this weekend and next weekend, there are only 10,000 of this unique card that are going to get sold, right? So what happens when I say that? Everyone is going to go and try to buy it as soon as they can, because if you don't get it now, someone else is going to get it. McDonald's does this with their like Pokemon card collaborations, limited time Happy Meal things. And that leads me into NFTs, the new acronym that everyone's talking about. So a lot of games are coming up now. They're, oh, we're going to do NFTs in game. We're going to do NFTs in game. I really disagree with this path that they're taking, because you don't really need to do an NFT to make something unique. Ticketmaster does this already with their technology, right? It's like, I have 10,000 tickets, which really are just in their database somewhere, that we have 10,000 of these units we can sell within a certain amount of time. You could do this already without using some sort of blockchain technology. You can just say there's 10,000 of this unit. Either this 10,000 unit gets sold out and then I turn off the button for people to buy it, or the time runs out and then turn off the button for people to buy it. What it allows a company to do, though, it allows a company a reason to do this, right? They could already do this. I can already say, hey, I want a unit that sold 10,000, and if it sells 10,000, turn it off. But when you say, oh, well, it's an NFT, then it kind of gives them some air cover to say, oh, well, it's a special thing and a reason for them to do it. So this is my personal view of the next models that are going to come out, is that someone at some point is going to come out with some sort of lockbox or gotcha mechanic that says, oh, there's only 10,000 of these and they're unique because they're NFTs, when they can already do it. And that's just the direction that where I see the next monetization model is going to come up from. All right. And I am saving the last 5 minutes or so for questions. I hope you guys learned something from it. Hi, Dan. You're muted.
Thank you. That was a very good talk. Thank you very much. When you were just saying about the limited quantity, I think Path of Exile is doing that, where maybe it's Path of Exile, maybe it's Darkest Dungeon, where it's like only the first 5,000 people that reach this certain area that kill a certain boss like get this one special item. Have you heard of that? And if so, can you speak of that?
So if they say it's like first raid boss kill or first X amount of people to do something, if their tactic is then like, I think Path of Exile is a free-to-play game, so you can probably buy boosts or something. So then that would generate revenue from people who want to rush and buy a boost. Darkest Dungeon is a single sell game, right? Like you just buy it and then you have the whole experience. Do they sell like extra card packs that you can get like better cards or better units? It's a roguelike, so maybe. If they have something attached to like a monetization thing that can help you get there faster or reduce your bad luck, that's definitely a choice that they can make. But it's really a question of, do you want your players to feel like that reward at the end is a vanity skill level reward? So like first clear titles in WoW, for example, are closer to like the vanity reward, whereas opposed to if it's Path of Exile and they sell boosts and it's like first to clear this and someone can throw $5,000 on it and get all the boosts and everything to level up faster than everyone else, then there's a difference there. And that's really whether or not you're okay with doing that kind of tactic.
Well, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Yes. No. Yeah, I see.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for a great talk. That was really, really informative. I think I saw earlier at the beginning of the talk, you mentioned that you had done like community management.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, I think it's easy to go online and see that some people are very vocal about their resistance to certain business models, and I'm just curious if like you have any what's been your experience in like kind of explaining to people who might have some resistance to it, and like my second half of my question is like, have you seen that their thoughts on the models reflect the actual sales?
So I think it's important when you first start marketing your game or start talking to people about your game and your new features is that you're very clear in the beginning what kind of monetization a player can expect.
Okay.
Doing a lockbox gacha or card collection mechanic is something that should be communicated to players clearly from the beginning because it's such a hot topic and it's such a, like for lack of a better word, divisive topic among people who play games that if you launch your game without a gacha and then you try to add it later, that is something that I would recommend against doing. Like if you're going to do it from the beginning and make it very clear that that's something you're going to want to do. Otherwise people are just going to be like, oh, now you're just doing a cash grab, right? That's where it's become synonymous with being a cash grab. As a community manager, if you have to communicate this, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really tough. And I don't know if any community manager has actually come out and said this is like, yes, we're doing this because we need the money. But at the same time,
Sure.
I'm like,
yeah,
maybe that's something that, I haven't done community management in a while. Maybe it's like, it would be definitely something that I would talk to other community managers about. Is like, hey, we didn't launch with a gacha mechanic and now we are going to because reasons.
Mhm.
I would say be open and honest about it, and maybe if there's some way that says the players don't want this, but they say they are willing to pay for it in other ways, that's something that can be discussed in other modeling, in other conversations. In terms of whether or not it's going to, like, if player sentiment has affected sales, that's a really big crapshoot. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Players will sometimes complain about, oh, well, we shouldn't buy, and then behind the scenes, when you look at your revenue stream, it's not affected. And other times, when people call for like, boycott so and so, or don't buy it, don't give them money, you'll actually see like a money dip. It's really dependent on who is actually taking the action and who is just tweeting.
Well, awesome. That's very informative. Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right. It is 10 o'clock and my time is up. I'll be around